this week. Hopefully, after a long dry spell, that's making my followers happy. Thank you all for being so loyal. I know that it was a long dry spell since you heard from me, but I'm here with updates on current events, new policy commentary, etc. So, I did mention in a previous video this week some topics that could be their own thing. I talked a little bit about my frustrations with the Georgia Republicans and the Republican Party in general. Obviously, on a number of different fronts. I've mentioned the healthcare front, how they responded very poorly and lack of preparation to problems and criticisms with Obama legislation in the past. So, a lot of frustrations with the lack of leadership on the Republican side and the lack of continuity in terms of policy direction, that they get easily pulled away from supposedly the policy directions they're supposed to represent and instead get paid off by large corporations. So, I think that's a lot of what has led to the dissatisfaction on the right. The vulnerability in that voter market share that Trump exploited. So there was already frustrations with the Republicans. Trump didn't cause those. And now Republicans are pulling against that momentum, trying to regain the party control that they've lost without fixing the core issues that got them there. And there's plenty of commentary about this online. Lots of people have these types of opinions. I mentioned that my family consider themselves fiscal conservatives, and I wanted to get into what fiscal policies I might look at and be drawn to as a moderate voter with a conservative background. I am somewhat apathetic. I am somewhat agnostic in terms of fiscal and economic policy because I think it's about a package that works together. We aren't seeing economic policies that work together comprehensively, and that's something I have a problem with. Now, on the conservative side, the fiscal conservative side, free market, etc., I think everyone knows at this point, since the Reagan administration, what the Republican Party was supposedly doing while saying that they were fiscal conservatives were getting rid of antitrust laws that were in place for economic protections, right? Those are what were implemented. Those things, labor laws, those things were all implemented that enabled the middle class to flourish. And so before the Reagan changes came about, there had been several decades of high inflation, higher taxation, higher regulation around businesses, and there has to be a balance. So we see currently, for example, in California, where there's higher regulations around businesses that are stifling them, and a lot of them are moving to Texas. So businesses can't flourish if things become too restrictive. But on the other hand, the middle class can't flourish, the economy can't function if there are no guidelines for businesses and corporations by the government. So what is the solution? What's the middle ground in this scenario? Well, I think at minimum, the total disregard for upholding the living wage or increasing the living wage is a big problem, because I go into a lot about tax burden. Corporations who shirk paying corporate tax then say, well, we're creating all these jobs and our employees have income, and then those employees create income tax. So we're really creating a tax revenue for the country because of our employees, but they shirk all of the tax burden onto the employees, which is a huge problem if they also then complain, we can't afford to pay our employees anything. When I was in high school, minimum wage was around $6 or $7 an hour, right? Like that's problematic right there. I was able to get jobs that paid more. I was lifeguarding. I was doing clerical office work. So around that era, high school and college, I could find jobs that paid $10 an hour, and those were kind of the good low-level jobs that were not just minimum wage. But the fact that minimum wage has not gone up that much since I was that age, and I won't say how long ago that was, but you can imagine it was long enough ago to be embarrassing for that to be the reality. Because that minimum wage should have gone up to $10 by the time I was at my next life stage, which has already passed. So that's embarrassing that I, within my lifespan, can look and say the minimum wage barely increasing since I was at that early life stage level, not even career level, right? Those first experiences getting jobs at that age. Really, really, really embarrassing. I mean, I think even babysitters get paid significantly more than I did when I was in high school. So, like for the babysitting market to shift and pay a lot more than I earned as a babysitter in high school, and for the business world not to, it's really, really, really embarrassing. But it's also really an economic problem if it causes this tax burden issue where Walmart, their employees get paid so little that all of my tax dollars have to go to supplement their living expenses because Walmart is just profiting from that profit margin that's all caused by my tax supplements for their employees. That's a big pet peeve of mine. But I think things like that don't represent what a conservative party should be doing. Sure, if a conservative party wants to protect the free economy, then a free market type of capitalist economy, then there have to be antitrust laws in place. There has to be minimum wage in place. Growing up, businesses did things for their employees like pay for health insurance. And that's going by the wayside and becoming more and more rare. So there's a lot of things I think the conservative party should be doing if they claim to be fiscal conservatives to support a free market economy that works, that they are not doing. So that's my 5 cents, not just 2 cents. You get 5 cents today on that topic. Just a brief overview and some comments since I mentioned it earlier in another video. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.